Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the awards lecture of Columbia University Asian Faculty Association. Good evening, or good morning, wherever you are. And I am Yiping Han, president of Columbia University Asian Faculty Association. I'm delighted that we have two wonderful panelists this evening or this morning to tell us about their career paths. Our panelists are the Young Investigator Award recipients, Dr. Harris Wang, who received the award in 2023, and Dr. Yuan Yang, who received the CUAFA Young Investigators Award in 2024. Allow me to give you an introduction to both professors. Professor Harris Wang is a tenured associate professor at Columbia University in the Department of Systems Biology. Dr. Wang received a bachelor's degree in mathematics and physics from MIT and a PhD in biophysics from Harvard, where he pioneered the multiple automated genome engineering platform for rapid and combinatorial genome editing. Dr. Wang's current research focuses on applying synthetic biology methods to manipulate microbial communities and mammalian systems. Using advanced approaches in genome engineering, gene synthesis, and the next generation sequencing, he studies how genomes are shaped and maintained by the environment and how they evolve over time. His research group is developing enabling technologies in systems and synthetic biology to engineer microbial systems and mammalian cells in ways that could address key challenges in health, energy, and environment. Dr. Wang is the recipient of numerous awards, including the Weizsäck Prize for Creative Promise in Biomedical Science, Presidential Early Career Awards for Scientists and Engineers, NIH Director's Early Independence Award, NSF Career Award, Sloan Research Award, ONR Young Investigator Award, and was named in Forbes 30 Under 30 in Science in 2012. He is currently interim chair of Department of Systems Biology at Columbia University. Professor Yuan Yang is currently a tenured associate professor of materials science in the Department of Applied Physics and Applied Mathematics at Columbia University. He received his bachelor's degree in physics from Peking University, followed by a PhD in materials science and engineering at Stanford University. After 3 years as a postdoc in the Department of Mechanical Engineering at MIT, where he studied under Professor Gang Chen, he joined Columbia University in 2015. His research focuses on materials designs for energy applications, including energy storage, thermal management, and chemical separation. He has published more than 100 peer-reviewed papers with a total citation over 30,000 and an H index of 68. He was a SciLog Fellow on Advanced Energy Storage. He won Materials Today Rising Star Award in 2022, 3M Non-Tenured Faculty Award in 2021, and MIT Technology Review 35 Under 35 China in 2019. As you can see, we have two amazing scholars, young scholars and the rising stars. So we're very, very fortunate. And before I turn, so the format we're going to take is Professor Wang will speak first, followed by Professor Yuan, and followed by Q&A. But before we start the program, I also specifically want to thank Columbia Global Center Beijing office for this wonderful collaboration. So we have, CUAFA has been collaborating with CGC Beijing ever since our inauguration 3 years ago. And so before further ado, Harris, please take over.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I think thanks, Dr. Han, for the wonderful introduction and the opportunity to speak with the audience here. I thought I'd take the time for this part of the discussion to give a sense of what my academic journey, how I got to where I am today, and some of the wonderful peoples and mentors and the topics and the areas that have really shaped the way I think about science and what we do. As Yiping said, I'm in the Department of Systems Biology as my primary, but we're also affiliated with the Department of Pathology and Cell Biology, also the Department of Biomedical Engineering. And over the years, I've really gotten a chance to work with some wonderful people in my lab, either through training or through collaborations. And those are reflected in the many kind of publications that we've been able to generate over the years here. And this is a picture of a recent picnic that we had from the lab in Washington Heights in New York City. So just kind of in terms of personal journey, I was born in Beijing, China, and this is a picture of me and with my mom and my cousin in Tiananmen Square. I moved to the States when I was 9. This is actually the very first picture of me coming out of the airport, at the San Francisco airport. My dad was able to capture this picture, so this is my first picture in America. And then we moved to Salt Lake City, Utah, where I spent kind of part of elementary school, middle school, and then high school. And so I was like many people, I was an immigrant. I really got to experience both kind of the experiencing new cultures, but also being in a new environment here. In terms of my academic kind of trajectory, I was very interested in kind of physics growing up, and some of my favorite books when I was young was kind of around learning about black holes and talking about reading about Albert Einstein or Richard Feynman, or kind of some of my academic heroes growing up. And when I got to undergraduate at MIT, where I did my bachelor's degrees, I wanted to do that, but I figured I wasn't probably good enough to be a physicist, but I thought I would at least be able to do something quantitative with my training, and if I could kind of at least be able to make it in those areas, I would be able to do a lot of things kind of later on. So I decided to kind of study math and physics, got a double degree in math and physics, but also study biomedical engineering, and I actually spent every semester in college doing research. And I did a lot of different types of research. So I worked with Elazar Edelman, who was now the director of the Institute of Medical Engineering at MIT, who studies atherosclerosis, the process by which you get kind of plaque growth on your arteries and causes heart attacks. And so doing quantitative modeling of that. And then I also spent some time at the NIH during the summer, as well as at MGH, where I worked with Greg Sorensen and looking at stroke. And this is, looking at essentially MRI images and whether we can actually predict kind of stroke infarcts based off of just kind of these MRI images. At some point, I was also very interested in the brain. And so I got a chance to work with in the lab of Susuno Tonegawa at MIT, who was at the time director of the Picauer Institute. And, he's very famous for winning the Nobel Prize in kind of understanding or delineating the antibody repertoire, but since then has moved on to studying kind of learning and memory. And so I was actually also really excited about that. And so, in some ways, I was trying to get maximum exposure. And that was maybe one of the themes of what I learned, is that kind of getting exposed to a lot of different topics was actually quite, a useful experience for me. So when I started my graduate school study, I went to Harvard, moved down the street from where I was before, and also joined kind of the medical engineering, medical physics program through the Harvard MIT Joint Health Science and Technology. That was actually a really interesting program that also gave me exposure to medicine, because you actually ended up having to do some clinical rotations. And so I ended up doing that, which was also really eye-opening, actually, in terms of learning about what's an impactful way to make medical advances through academia, but also having that kind of medical background. Along the way, I spent some time working with George Whitesides in learning about microfluidics. Dr. Whitesides is actually, I think, like the most cited chemist in the world, and I learned a lot about how to think about science, how to really strategize how you document the work you do, and how to write papers along the way. Also got a chance to work with Sangeeta Bhatia, who is an HHMI investigator and works on kind of nanoparticles, drug delivery. But ultimately, I decided to join George Church's group, and George was, really a pioneer in DNA sequencing and also synthesis. And around that time is when we had developed kind of this community around synthetic biology. And so the idea was to try to engineer cells that could have completely novel functions. So I ended up building this kind of automated genome scale engineering platform. Is actually the first automated genome engineering kind of instrument, which called MAGE, and we ended up using this to generate kind of millions of mutations in a directed manner that could make different compounds like lycopene that's found in tomatoes, or indigo that dyes your genes, but also completely reprogram cells in novel ways. Along the way, we also participated. I participated in some of these inventors competitions, which was a really fun ride. And then kind of moving on, I started to think about kind of what I wanted to do next. So I stayed on for about a couple of years at the Wyss Institute for biologically inspired engineering at Harvard. And at the time, I received one of these NIH Early Independence Awards, which really helped catapult kind of independent kind of research programs for me. The basis of our research that I proposed was to engineer microbes in the gut and be able to modify host functions. At the time, this is back in the mid 2010s or early 2010s, there was just a flurry of activity around sequencing and describing the microbiome, and I thought with my background in genome engineering, we could really apply this to the microbiome. And so shortly after that, I moved to Columbia University, where I started my kind of faculty position. In Department of Systems Biology, I gave a lot of credit to our former chair, Andrea Califano, for taking a chance on me to hire me, basically, not too far out of graduate school. And so I started in 2013. And I received my tenure in 2020, and then actually became kind of the interim chair of the department last year. So I've been in this role. So now it's actually been really a wonderful kind of career kind of growth for me in terms of experience, to be able to not only have participated in founding the department as one of the early members, but also now taking on the leadership role to kind of lead the department. And so so what I thought is also maybe take a few minutes to just to highlight different topic areas of our research, to give you kind of a sense of what we do. We develop technologies in synthetic biology. One of the areas we're interested in is gene synthesis, different ways that we can synthesize genetic variants. For example, one of a class of projects we developed was during the pandemic. We had developed a methodology where we can synthesize gene variants very quickly and very cheaply, and this allowed us to characterize some of the emerging pandemics. For example, the Omicron variant, we were able to synthesize, characterize, and publish this work within the span of less than a month from the initial description of the viral variant by the WHO to finally getting it published in Nature in basically less than a month, which was actually pretty amazing. And this is done in collaboration with David Ho and the Aaron Diamond Center here at Columbia. And so since then, we've done a lot of work in really developing these type of technologies. We're also excited about kind of recent activities in machine learning to design proteins and build synthetic cells. And so there's lots of really great advances in this area. Certainly the recent this year's Nobel Prize was awarded for these areas of advances. So we're really excited about taking on combining the technology of actually building systems with kind of designing cells, proteins and cells on the computer and really combining that. And so we have a number of projects kind of in this area. As I mentioned before, we really started the lab thinking about how do we engineer not just individual cells, but actually communities of cells, what's described as the microbiome. And obviously microbes are everywhere. They're found in soil, in the ocean, in kind of the environment that you live in, but also they're present in your gut. And it's actually kind of every molecule that you essentially experience in your body kind of goes through your gut. And at this interface, it's trillions of microbes, and we thought this was a really exciting opportunity by which we can really start to dissect those interactions, but also apply engineering principles to potentially augment and modify these microbes for therapeutic applications. And we think that there's lots of utility for this in other areas as well. We're also excited about thinking about combining, the manipulation of the microbes with their ability to essentially be deployed as broad autonomous sensors. So whether it's in the ocean or in kind of the crevices of your GI tract, we're essentially engineering these cells to be able to record all the sophisticated or complex signals that it experiences, putting them into the genome as almost like a digital recorder, and then be able to actually allow us to kind of measure what had happened, chronicle its history during kind of its deployment in different parts of either the body or in environments. And so kind of turning these microbes into kind of little reporter cells that will tell you what's going on. We've also kind of developed automation systems for building kind of personalized biobanks of microbes from different sources. For example, individuals who are elite athletes that run really far, or people who live for a very long time, or people who go around and eat all kinds of street food and never get sick. And so those are all really exciting kind of phenotypes, if you will. And so we're interested in kind of downloading what types and understanding what types of microbes that are colonized in those individuals and potentially using that as a source to build next generation kind of probiotics. And this is one of the automated instruments that we had developed to be able to kind of really streamline this process, allowing us to generate hundreds of thousands of strains in a very short period of time. We're also excited about building biomaterials, and this is an example of a study that we did recently where we use fungi, essentially the roots of fungi, kind of roots of mushrooms, to build kind of these living biomaterials that can self-heal when they damage, or they can be folded and manipulated in different ways, for example, to make very complex structures. And these materials actually can then sense and respond and potentially talk to each other. Imagine having bricks that could essentially interact with one another and be able to sense either a metabolite on one side and be able to respond to that with an appropriate programmed response. We've also kind of been, had a fun time being in New York. There's a lot of artists around, and so we've been able to interact with some of the kind of the artists in our networks. And this is work with Annika Yi, or some of our students actually helped put together an exhibit at the Guggenheim. So it's really fun to see our names, on the walls next to the Picassos and the Dalis. So. And we're really lucky to have received a lot of funding from lots of sources. Part of the job here is my job is to raise money from different sources. I'm happy to give whatever advice I can give about how to kind of raise funds from both private and public sources here. And also, we do a lot of stuff in kind of commercializing our work. And so I've co-founded a couple of companies, one on DNA biosecurity, another on measuring gastrointestinal function. through sequencing, and also been involved in a number of kind of startups and as well as kind of more mature companies advising on various technical aspects. And a number of our work has been translated to patents and either issued and have been licensed. So maybe in the last couple of minutes, I can give some personal advice. I thought would be fun for trainees. I think it's really important that people have big dreams. And so I always tell people they should aim for the stars. And even if you don't get to your destination, maybe you shoot for Mars and you land on the moon. Well, maybe landing on the moon is actually still a really great accomplishment. But but setting sights high will always kind of guarantee you that even if in failure, you might still be able to succeed, right? If you kind of set your sights too short, then maybe you could have done more if you had bigger ambitions. And then also along the way, you should learn to fail productively. Always learn from your failures and be able to kind of use that as a stepping stone for the next project. And also, I think it's really important to understand kind of incentive structures along the way, right? Whether it's like how you think about your job, the incentive structures of your colleagues in terms of like where they need to go in their career, your work and their work might kind of intersect or coincide in some ways. And if you can optimize incentive structures for everyone, then everyone's going to be aligned in terms of, going forward rather than have, conflicts because people have opposing kind of goals. And that once you do that, you actually have opportunity to really be able to share with others. And I think sharing is one of the most important things that we can do in academia and be able to share freely and generously. I always think that like if your idea is so really good, then having someone else work on the idea that you come up with is probably one of the biggest compliments you can get from someone. And so you should always just try to generate lots of ideas so that other people could work on them rather than kind of hold on to it and hope that no one steals your idea. I always think of the other way. And along the way there, I think it's really just important to be really kind, right? There's lots of, things that happen along the ways in terms of failure and stresses and just, being kind to people, I think is, it's so simple, but it's so important. And then also, I would say always try to stay intellectually hungry and adventurous. You really gotta, this job is for the long run. You can do lots of things with this, but you gotta also keep being engaged. And then also kind of take breaks so that you have a good healthy work-life balance. I'm gonna stop there. I'm sure we'll have more discussions, but I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Professor Wang, for this wonderful lecture of his path from Beijing to Utah to Boston and finally to New York. I remember that Guggenheim exhibit because I took my whole lab there. It was a lab field trip. Was great fun. And then we're very proud to see microbiology work in the world-class museum exhibit. There are questions in that's wonderful. So if you have any questions, please type in the Q&A, but we're going to save all the questions to the very end. Now, I'm very delighted to turn the podium to Professor Yang, who will tell us about his career path.
So I will spend less time on my personal career path, but talk a little bit more about my thoughts on how to build a successful career in science. So I was born in Jiangsu province, but my family moved to Beijing when I was 2 years old. So I basically grew up in Beijing. So I got my bachelor degree in physics from Peking University. Then I found that my interests more lie on the combination of physics and chemistry. So I went to Stanford University to study material science, and my advisor is Professor Yi Cui. And there I focus on these rechargeable batteries. And if you are familiar with batteries, I specifically work on lithium sulfur batteries. And after 5 years, I feel I want to explore something other than batteries. I don't think in the postdoc period, I want to do something different from my PhD. So I actually moved to MIT to work with Professor Zhang Chen in mechanical engineering, and his expertise is heat transfer. There, I actually get ideas to combine batteries and thermal management together to develop these thermal batteries that can convert the waste heat into electricity. I joined Columbia in 2015, okay, as assistant professor in the program of material science, which is a part of the Department of Applied Physics and Applied Mathematics, and promoted to the associate professor in 2020. At Columbia, I sort of try to explore different things. Based on my background in batteries and heat transfer. So I work on batteries and also thermal management. And also recently we start to study chemical separations. So sort of I have a diversified interest and like to explore different things. In the following slides, I will just talk a little bit more about my thoughts on how to be successful in research as a graduate and postdoc. Actually, these slides are partially from my advisor, Professor Yi Cui. I think maybe some audience, especially in the field of chemistry and material science, know him pretty well. So this is many of the words are from the lecture he gave to his group every year about how to become successful in research, and I also add my own opinion insight. So being successful in research, I think there are basically, I think, 4 important things. One is the research productivity and creativity. So your publication, your research work, that's the most important thing for your career. And also for young people, it's important to form a research vision for the future. So because when you interview for assistant professor, a faculty position, so the professors not only care about your research productivity, they also care whether you have a vision for the future. Because after being an assistant professor, you need to be independent, and the research vision is actually more important than research productivity. And also the ability to present your research and yourself. So this is actually, as a Chinese, I know, especially for students in China, so we don't get much training on how to present research. This is actually very, very important, and everyone should pay attention to this, because even if you do a good job, so if you cannot explain it well, then actually you won't get much attention from those. You won't get much attention, say, to convince others to believe that you have done a great job. And the last point is become mature. For example, you need to learn how to achieve leadership, how to network with others, and even how to market your work. And that's also as important as your scientific achievements. So, and specifically how to achieve these goals. So I think my advisor Yi says something very, very important. So that's to forming the right habits. Okay. So, and there are the different kinds of habits. The first ones are like work very hard. I think as you're in a scientific field, you know that you have working hard is very important, because you need to spend time on your job. So that's the I think that's the most important thing to actually generate important results. And besides just the working hard, and also, you need to be dedicated. So it's very common that you will encounter lots of challenges and failures in the research, and being dedicated will help you to overcome this failure. So I think research is not only about working hard. So also it's important to the thinking is as important as working hard. So I always tell my students that if you only think during the working hours, then you're actually not a good PhD. So you should think. So when you for example, eat food and take showers, I don't mean you need to do it every time, but think outside the working hours that actually can help you generate new ideas to find out new ways to solve the challenges. I would say at least 1/3 of my ideas are generated outside the working hours. So when I take shower and exercise, sometimes I get really good ideas. Yeah. So, and besides working, so reading is also very important. So it's actually important you read a lot of papers to not only understand your field, but also to understand the broader fields. Okay, because many good ideas actually come from topics other than what you are working on. So sometimes you just borrow ideas from other fields and that can solve the problem. So it's a very common thing. And then how to learn the broader field. So first you need to have the habit to read literature extensively. For example, at least I would say maybe 5 to 10 top journals. Nowadays, indeed, we have really many journals and many papers. So then learn how to read them quickly. For example, look at the papers, abstracts, and also you need to read important papers to really deep understand things. And also another things that I think every faculty will emphasize is to attend talks. So not only talks, seminars relevant to your field, but try to attend some talks not in your field. Okay, so because the talk 1 hour, so a professor talk about the most important thing in his research, and you can learn a lot than just reading 10, maybe 5-10 hours of papers. And then you can also have the chance to directly ask him questions. And this is very important. And I would say I learned a lot from seminars, for example, in organic semiconductors, in electronics. Yeah, so some new techniques that could directly solve the problems in your research projects. Yeah, and also when you read literature or attend talks, it's not just reading. You should also think about how these ideas could benefit your own research. Think how to apply them to you. So you need to have this habit, so to think in that way. So that's actually definitely not every talk, every paper can help you. But if you have this habit, then over time, then you will find some exciting things. You will see some ideas in other fields can help you a lot. And the next 3 good habits are related to the networking or how to communicate with others. So a habit to talk to your landmates to learn to be helpful. This is the same as what Harris said. So don't hide all of your ideas. Yeah. So sharing them so can sometimes help others and others will help you. Yeah. And also be active in talking with your advisors. So in general, I have many Chinese students, and in generally, I would say I see sometimes they are quite shy. Okay, I think you should have the habit to actively commute with your advisors. So that's actually very important for mutual understanding. So then they can also, your advisors can better support you if you talk with them more. Yeah, and also a habit to cherish the opportunities to present. So presentation skills is actually very important. So you need to sell your research. So then the presentation, that's the way we sell our research, to have to let others to understand your research, and then to advertise your research. And also be open-minded. Don't just focus on the projects you work on, or just don't say field always say that, okay, something won't work. So maybe you think something doesn't work, but be open-minded. So think about the advantages of other things instead of just say, okay, something has certain advantages and it won't work. So it's often that some shining part of other maybe not that good method can help you. Okay, so this is the same as being positive. So okay, so if you feel negative, then actually, so you will see everything negative. It will not. It's much challenging to find the ways to solve the problem. Yeah, and the last one that's also from my advisor. So I think that's actually a very important part. So a habit to keep forming good habits. So it's actually very challenging to have a good habits. Okay, and if you try to have these habits, to think about what are good habits and try to have these habits, then that's actually, I would say, you will definitely grow up and become much better. Yeah. And a little bit more about later stage career. So I say if you become an assistant professor, so I think first you need to then now you have a group, you have your own students. Yeah, it's very important to show your excitement to the students because students don't know where to go. So you actually need to excite them so they feel exciting. Okay, then they can they will be very active and positive to their research project. And in the first maybe 1 or 2 years, you need to work side by side with the students. At that stage, you are actually a super postdoc. Okay, you need to deal with the proposal. You need to deal with the teaching, and you also need to work with your students. So to teach them what to do. Okay, and that's very important. Yeah, but these 2 years is definitely also pretty challenging, but it works. Yeah, and also try to publish the first paper early, so to make your name, and have a research focus. So it's common that in the first 2 years, 1 to 2 years, you try to explore different things because you know you need to have your own directions. And at this period, it's fine that you look at different directions. But after maybe 2 or 3 years, it's a good idea actually to narrow down your research a little bit to have 1 or 2 focus. So then which can make your name because we do have limited time. So if you work on too many things, then it's hard for any of them to stand out. Yeah. And also it's very important to network with your colleagues and top people in the field. Some suggestions, some tips from my personal experience and from others. One is you can actually have lunch with your colleagues, maybe just once a week, and you can say in 1 year you can talk with 50 colleagues, and then you can learn a lot. And also the senior colleagues will know you, and they will also be able to better share their resources with you. And you can also maybe just 1 semester invite 1 or 2 top people in the field to your university and to give talks. And after 6 years, then you will know maybe 20 top people in the field. And in United States, those are the people who will write the recommendation letter for your tenure case. And if you have invited them to the talks, they will know you better. So the not good thing is you ask someone to write a letter and he knows a little about your research. That's not good. Yeah, I think this is what I want to share. Yeah, so.
Wonderful. Thank you, Professor Yang, for a wonderful presentation. And it's a great summary of the habits. I think it right on. So we have now it's let's open for Q&A. I think the first question I remember, I think it was for Professor Wang, because you present a lot, and then one person asked, how do you find time to do all these?
Yeah, I think this is a great point here. I think, you know, it comes down to actually how do you manage your time, right? And there's lots of things that you like learning how to prioritize and learning how to do things quickly. I think is actually one of the key kind of, tricks in this job, right? And also learning how to, give instructions or give directions to people when they need it, and then allowing your trainees to essentially also blossom, right? You can certainly micromanage projects down to individual detailed experiments, or you can give general direction and say, hey, why don't you go do this? And so what I tend to do is actually, scale or personalize kind of the interactions with the mentees, based off of what their needs are, right? So if some people really need to have more detailed discussions, I give them that time. And then if others really don't need that, and they can be more independent, then I allow them to do that as well. And I think so that's one way to kind of, manage your time a little bit. And then I think the other thing is, you don't really know how much you can do until you kind of get to the point where you're maybe like overcommitted, and then you can back out. And then this is the way I always think about this, is that, always try to see how big your bucket is of commitments you can do. And then you can kind of actually be surprised. Sometimes the more you commit yourself to, the more efficient you become, not the other way around. And so you learn to essentially optimize and become faster and better. And so, you don't want to overcommit and then under deliver. So you want to kind of slowly work up towards that. Certainly, you don't do this on day one, but over time you can actually really increase your capacity. And this is what I found.
So I actually just want to ask a very specific question. You also did a lot. You talked about how you manage your lab to do many different things, but you also did a lot yourself as a student and a postdoc. So how did you do that? I'm curious, how many hours did you work each day?
Yeah, it's hard to, people say this, right? It's hard to, it's not work if you like what you're doing and you consider it, I think of it as just play, right? In the sense of like, I get to go think about things and do stuff. So from that perspective, I would say certainly in graduate school, I probably worked a lot. But I didn't feel like I worked a lot. I mean, I sometimes go on the weekends, but not all the time. It's not, I think, certainly there's a correlation between amount of time you put in and your productivity. But, as Professor Yang said, it's not just purely about that. It's a lot of it is, being smart about reading the literature. A day at the library could save you a month in the lab. That's what they say, right? So, so there's lots of ways that you can kind of optimize around that. But yeah, I think like if you love what you're doing, then it doesn't feel like work, then you're going to be productive and you're going to enjoy what you're doing. I think this is, this has always been my philosophy. You got to love what you're doing. If you don't love what you're doing, maybe you should pick another project, right? So
this next question, I think it could be for both of you, but I'd like to hear from Professor Yang first. Have you ever been stuck in the direction you're exploring, or have you ever thought about not pursuing research? What do you do to stay motivated when tough times like this arise?
Well, I think, yeah, as Harry said, so you need to love what you are working on. So that's, I think, first I just like doing research. So similar to Harris, when I was a kid, I was inspired by this black hole, the universe things, and I also get a chance to work in an institute when I was a high school student. So I'm very motivated to do research. I found this is something I like. Yeah, so then when you encounter something that's, for example, like a failure in research, so first I think lower the expectation. So I think one lab mate of me at Stanford once said, or always say, okay, so every 10 ideas, you can get one idea work. And every 10 working idea, you have one great idea. So I just feel that I don't expect every idea to work. So if it's failed, just learn from the failure, okay, and then move on to the next idea. Okay, and and also trust yourself. So if you use the right way, like for example, working hard, and you have done enough literature search, you think in the right way, then finally something will work out. So I often tell my students that it's very common that in PhD postdoc you have 1 or 2 years, there's nothing. And but if you can survive that, then actually something very exciting will wait ahead. Yeah, so just I think be patient, and also don't say want every idea to work. This is not mean that you should not work hard on every idea, but just balance your expectation, and that will make life easier. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Yang.
That's my
Harris, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I would say kind of this idea of resiliency is really important in science, right? Like, and you know, most of what you're doing is actually just, you know, failing until you get to be successful, right? And there's lots of failure in between successes, and I think people need to recognize that and say that, well, how do you fail productively along the way so you can get to a success is really key. Because you know, sometimes you're like, oh, I tried this thing and it worked. Well, then you just got lucky, right? Because most of the time that's not how it works. Yeah, most, you know, it's not what we say, it's not how research if you know what you're doing, right? So in some ways, I think that's really key to not getting stuck or not feeling like you're getting stuck. You know, you can get stuck if you actually are failing, and you're failing in an aimless way. So you try a bunch of different things, and then suddenly none of those failures are leading you to a useful next step. Then you need to kind of evaluate better. But I think in general, you know, I think it's very true that, you know, not all ideas are good. You need to kind of manage your expectations. But on the other hand, you could also be optimistic, right? And be realistic as well, so that, you know, you have lots of ideas and maybe one of those ideas will pan out and you can kind of work to parallelize some of this. And then I think the way to really motivate yourself is to talk to your colleagues. I think sometimes talking to your colleagues really helps you to, you know, both think through your own process, but also get encouragement or get another perspective. And I've found that to be quite helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Next, thanks to great thanks to Professor Yang for the insightful sharing with thoughtful cultural awareness. Next is thanks to both professors for inspiring speech. I would like to ask, how do you decide whether to choose academia or industry in your future career development? In addition, may I ask whether Professor Yang still has the PhD position in 2025 fall? So Yuan, you have a prospective student.
Okay. Okay, maybe I can answer first. Yeah, I think that's roughly so the moment when I decide to choose academia as a career is roughly the second year in my PhD. Yeah, so I think in the first year of my PhD, so I okay, I think the academia is something I'm very interested, but I'm not sure. So in the first year of my PhD, I just try to learn more about the industry and I mean the different lives in industry and academia, and also want to see whether I'm good at research or not. So then in the second year, I feel I like the way how academia work better. So for example, so it's the freedom that you can do things you like to do, and you know, in industry indeed, so you are sort of limited. Yeah, and also because I was at Stanford, you know, there are lots of opportunities that even professors can build their own startups, and to really still can translate their research into something very useful. So and I feel that I want to be a professor. Yeah, so to create something by my own, to create something exciting by myself, and then use that to benefit the society. Yeah. So that's the moment I want to work in academia. And regarding position in 2025, yeah, I mean, it depends on the funding situation, but likely have some openings, and just feel free to send me emails, yeah, and we can talk more, yeah.
Harris, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say, just personally for me, I guess I always was interested in the academic track, but along the way, I went to some career fairs at the end of undergraduate, right? You like at MIT, they had lots of career fairs, and you can get some free T-shirts and other goodies. And then I was talking to people that are like, "Hey, help us like build the next generation battleships or something." I was like, "Okay, well, like I think like for me, academia is probably one of the only kind of fields where you're encouraged to talk very freely about what you're doing and really sharing what you're doing with everyone, right? I think if you go into companies, oftentimes you are discouraged from sharing about what you're doing with others. And I think that's the one really freeing aspect of academia. I think the other thing is, you make a lot of friends everywhere in the world, right? You meet people from all places, and you essentially grow with them, and you grow with the field. And so there's an opportunity to really make you can shape the field for decades on, and then you'll have colleagues for that period of time. And I think it's harder to do that in industry. I think I certainly have had a number of students go into industry. Actually, most of my students go into industry, whether as startups or joining companies. I think those are all really great opportunities as well, especially now. I think there was probably less of those types of opportunities when I was wrapping up. I had an opportunity to join kind of, one of these companies that IPO'd, as one of the first employees. I declined just because I wanted to run my own lab, but and I don't regret that, but I think there's lots of opportunities as well. So it really kind of depends on, what you feel like. I think academia a lot of times is you really have to want to do it, right? Because there's a lot of other things that associated with it. But I think the fruits of the labor is quite rewarding if those are the things that really motivate you along the way.
Yeah.
I want to
Henry,
add something. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and just as Harry said at the end, I think both career paths are great. So the most important thing is to understand what you want. Okay. So ask yourself and also understand these pathways, because two pathways can provide quite different things. So they are both great, but understand what you want is actually the most important, so you can see which pathway fit you better. And then you may ask how to understand these pathways and how to understand myself, what you want. So I think then you need to learn how to gather information. You need to learn how to talk with people to really learn what these pathways mean, and then through reading, for example, books, talking with others, then you can better understand yourself and then choose the way you want. And of course, you can also try at the early stage of your career, for example, doing internships, and yeah, so have some experience doing research in undergrads. Yeah, I mean, those things can help. Yeah.
Thank you both for great insights and comments. I actually remember my daughter talking about the MIT career fairs. So instead of students looking for jobs, it's the companies looking for students. Next question. When come to a new field, what's the most efficient way to review the literature to learn the topics? Who would like to answer that question? Relatively easy.
Yeah, I would say read review papers like that basically summarizes the field. I think now there's a lot more kind of tools out there in terms of these language models that could actually do a pretty good summary of the state of the art, which, you know, weren't available previously. But I would say, you know, also I would go and just ask people who are in the field. I think those are probably the most efficient way to do that. But I would say, you know, just, you know, really go through and read the literature by reading review papers and kind of digging in. Go to a library, that's what I say.
Yeah, and this is specifically for material science field. So there's a journal called MRS Bulletin. So they have the monthly topic. I mean, they will just invite some very big guys in this in a specific field to write several review papers on this topic, and that's very helpful. I often read that. Yeah.
Okay, next question. I'm a third-year student majoring in actuarial science. I have two questions. My current understanding of this field is limited to what I've learned in class. Is it appropriate to start reading papers now, or will it interfere with my in-class studies? Well, similar to the previous question. My second question is that I haven't yet identified a specific area of research for my future studies. I want to pursue a graduate degree in a statistical related field to broaden my horizons. What is an appropriate time to start my academic research? I think you both kind of answered that question already. You both started research early, right?
Yeah, I think I would just say start as soon as you can, like, you know, you and then also I also sometimes like you don't know what you like or you what is most important in the field, and you actually rely on your advisor to give you good direction. And this is actually one of the key role of the advisor is to give you good direction. And so you should kind of listen to your advisors, even if you don't understand exactly why some things are. Sometimes it gives you a good sense of, you know, that's why you talk to them. This is something I learned personally, right? Like oftentimes students are like, oh, I can kind of just figure out my own thing, but then they're actually sometimes quite misguided because they don't understand the entire context of the past history or kind of the motivation. And so, you know, this is why the professors, you know, have their position and, you know, are able to be advisors for research, right? So listen to your advisors, some at least for the general directions.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
You agree? Okay. Last question, because we're time is up, and we need to give Mr. Xiao a few minutes. For both professors, now looking back, anything in your research, graduate school, early years as a professor, you wish you could have done differently, or any lessons learned? Yuan, you want to start first?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, this is actually okay. So when I was a PhD student, so my advisor asked me to work on lithium sulfur battery. I mean, it's a kind of a battery. So at that time, I feel okay, this battery has so many problems. Okay, I didn't see this research project very positively. So I just say, okay, it will not work. And it turns out, although I published some good papers on it, but I think if I treat it more positively, so I can have even better achievement back to the old days. And that's also a lesson I learned from my PhD. So seeing things positively. And also, this reminds me some questions I encountered from my, from how to interact with your advisor, especially in the first 1 or 2 years. So it's quite common that in the first 2 years, the first project or second project, your advisor gave to you is not what you are interested in. So I would say, do it. So first, prove that you are capable of achieving good results in your first, second project. Then talk with your advisor, so to show your interest. So once you approve your capability, then your advisor will trust you more, and then actually you will have more freedom to work on things you want to do.
Great point, Harris.
Yeah,
Very
maybe just two quick points here. I would say one thing is, you know, and this is what my advisor told me too about this, is, you know, you should instead of going to where everyone's going, you should go towards where, you know, it's like in hockey, you should skate towards where the puck is going, not where the puck is, right? And so that is one way to really help define kind of future trajectory. And in terms of, this is kind of one thing I learned, is that, you know, sometimes things work, sometimes things don't. That's okay. But you should always, and, you know, don't give up too early. I definitely had projects where, you know, it was promising until I gave up, you know, and or it wasn't promising enough that I gave up. And then, you know, a couple years later, I read a paper about it in Nature. I was like, oh, well, I was on the right track, but like I should have kept going. And so, you know, this is a good way to really also make sure that you can keep motivating yourself to say, well, I'm at least in the right field. There's more kind of gems to dig out of the ground. So, yeah.
Wonderful, great insights. Thank you both, and thank you the audience for wonderful questions and discussions. And now I want to turn the time to Ms. Helena Xiao, Executive Director of the CGC Beijing.
Okay, so thank you, Professor Han, and also CUAFA for organizing this important discussion on the topic that most rising scholars care deeply about. And also, I'm truly impressed about the sharing of Professor Wang and Professor Yang's academic journey, and also especially the early part of that. I'm truly impressed with a lot of golden advice, and reassured that the true greatness originates from a genuine interest and dedication to what you want to do. So I ask for this actual 10 minutes to share about the newly released funding opportunity by Columbia Global. Thank you for staying with us. And I'm not sure how many are Columbians at this room, but for our external audience, if you'd like to stay for the next 10 minutes, I hope you will find some interesting information and plant the seeds maybe for our future collaboration. So let me start by giving you some background on who we are, so you know who you're dealing with. I'm based in Beijing with Columbia Global Center in the city of Beijing. So this office was funded in 2009. We are the only global center of the university covering the region of East Asia. And we are the most vibrant physical and intellectual gateway and regional hub in terms of people, faculty and student engaged and activity implemented. So we have served the mission to facilitate and promote academic exchange and research collaboration for our faculty and students with their counterparts in the region for over a decade. And we have played a vital role as the regional base facilitator and lever for them. Then, since 2023, we have undergone an organizational overhaul and now become an integral part of a larger university initiative known as Columbia Global. So, as you can see from these slides, as our EVP and also the University Professor of Epidemiology and Medicine, Dr. Wafa Al-Sadr emphasizes, at Columbia Global, with the full weight of Columbia University, our ambition is twofold. One is to harness the power of thought, and second is to pair this thought with decisive action. So here it comes, Columbia Global, where thinking meets doing. Then so our vision is, of course, to reimagine the university role, and the mission is to advance knowledge and foster global engagement to address global challenges. Then structure-wise, Columbia Global bring together so far 4 major global initiatives from across the university, including a 1-year master degree program in global thought, one social impact-driven research institute called Columbia World Project, and one think tank based in Paris called Institute for Ideas and Imagination, as well as this 10 global center around the world. So all of this robust educational and research capacity on campus, as well as the physical and intellectual infrastructure, which serve to enhance the university's global engagement or academic capacity for its faculty and student. So this transition, of course, has brought about a notable shift in our primary operation focuses. So we now focus on delivering global education, supporting transformative research, convening novel conversation, as well as mapping innovations to challenges. So now let's dive into the main topic today to share briefly about the funding opportunities aimed at our faculty and researcher. So the Columbia Global provides more than 2 million USD in 2025 and other resources to advance capacity catalytic research and deepen partnership around the world, implement social impact projects, create new learning opportunity for our students and more. So all the opportunities seek evidence of collaboration and partnership across discipline, schools, and borders. So I'm only gonna highlight maybe 2 or 3 initiatives for your reference, and feel free to reach the full list and information on our website. The first one is probably the most relevant one to today's audience, the Early Career Faculty Impact Fellowship. It is a part-time year-long program that is aimed to train and support highly motivated faculty in deepening their expertise in applying research for social impact through a comprehensive series of workshop and a seed fund to get a project idea off the ground. Then the program participant will explore topics key to strengthening their ability to address complex societal challenges. Basically is to encourage the faculty member to applying what they are researching and what they are studying into the real life problem solving. Including so the key capacity module includes developing effective partnership outside of the university, understanding power dynamics and equity in research and practice, designing human-centered projects, and project planning, development, implementation, and scaling, stuff like that. So as you can see, the program fees and also the funds you can get during the different stage for this program. And second one is highly relevant to Beijing Center 2. It's called Scholar in Residence Program. So this is a perfect opportunity for those who would like to travel internationally to advance your research, build partnership, or develop new educational experience for your student at Columbia. So this program offers full-time faculty and researchers across the university the opportunity to advance your teaching, research, and professional work while immersing themselves in the academic and culture environment of a Columbia Global Center. So the scholar who will get the award will spend between 2 to 8 weeks at a Columbia Global Center and receive up to $5,000 to support travel, accommodation, and project-related expenses. You will, of course, receive support pre-departure and during your residency. So as you can see, this is especially friendly to those who travel to one global center's country or city for the very first time. You will also have the access to a workspace at our center's office, the opportunity to establish connection with local and regional institution and partner, and you will engage with Columbia Global Center staff on events, seminar, and other means of scholarly exchange. And upon your return, you're encouraged to share your experience with your colleagues at Columbia. So I will skip that part. And same-wise, we have provided 3 very broad themes just to ensure that the work of the awardees and our center can collaborate and enhance each other to the greatest extent possible. Then the third one is President Global Innovation Fund, focus on projects that advanced progress towards just and collaborative society. So we fully understand that the wide meaning and scope of the same. There is no one understanding of the concept of just and collaborative societies. So over on the webpage of our program, you will see there are a couple of illustrative purposes. For example, you can do youth-led and intergenerational approach in your research. You can employ health and health inequity kind of subject under your research topic and stuff like that. So I will skip that part. So I will mention briefly about award, the award available under this program. There's a early concept award ranging from 10,000 to 25,000 over 1 to 2 years. We also have an innovation award up to 100,000 over 2 to 3 years. Up to 8 awards are anticipated under early concept awards and 4 under the innovation award. Then lastly, I think I'm going to skip the social impact award. Then talk about how we can help during your application stage and afterwards. So we can, of course, provide tailored guidance on crafting a compelling application that aligns with funding priorities, as well as assistance with budget planning to ensure that the financial resources are allocated effectively. Additionally, the center also can help conduct feasibility analysis to help the PIs assess the viability of their proposed projects. Then should your project be selected for funding, the Beijing Center support continues. We serve as a vital partner in coordinating the delivery of your project, ensuring that all components are executed smoothly and efficiently. So in addition to supporting the individual project, the Beijing Center collaborates closely with every school on campus. So if you, as an early faculty, early career or rising faculty member, you ever gonna take a capacity at your school to enhance the international outreach, student global and student academic and professional development, or conduct compliance with regulation on initiative in the region we cover, the center is also here to support. So yeah, sorry we don't have time for live Q&A, but I encourage you to stay in touch and contact us via email or WeChat if you're interested in learning more details and even apply. So thank you so much.
That's wonderful, Helena.
All right, very quick one.
Yeah, these opportunities are very wonderful. All right, we're over time, but we had a wonderful session. Great discussion, great presentations from both Professor Wang and Professor Yang. Thank you both so much for your time on the Friday evening, and it's actually getting very late. It's past the 10 p.m. So I guess we'll just end here. Thanks everyone for attending, and for both Helene and for CCC Beijing for helping with this webinar. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank you,
one.
Dr.
Bye.
Han, for the
Thanks,
great,
Harris. Thanks, Yuan.
yeah, thank you.